For decades, people had imagined the edge of the solar system as a quiet idea, a distant border, a cold line in the dark where our sun slowly faded and empty space began. But when Voyager 1 finally crossed that invisible threshold, it did not find silence. It found a wall, a real boundary, a living frontier where the protection of our star ends and something far harsher begins. And that is what makes this story so unsettling. Because Voyager did not simply travel farther than any human-made object ever had. It revealed that our solar system may not just be a neighborhood. It may be a shelter, a fragile magnetic refuge holding back a galaxy filled with violent radiation, pressure, and forces we barely understand. When the probe crossed that boundary in 2012, its instruments recorded something abrupt, almost like flipping a switch. The solar wind collapsed, cosmic radiation surged, and the darkness beyond our sun suddenly stopped looking empty. What Voyager found out there was not the peaceful void we like to imagine. It was a reminder that home may have been protecting us from something all along. Most people think of the solar system as a map of planets, moons, asteroids, and empty space between them. But Voyager 1 helped reveal something far stranger. The true outer boundary of our cosmic home is not defined by distance. It is defined by physics, by a battle, by the point where the sun can no longer push back against the rest of the galaxy. That protective bubble is called the heliosphere, a vast magnetic shield inflated by the solar wind and stretched across millions of kilometers in every direction. And while we live inside it, we are protected more than we realize. That idea changes everything because it means Earth is not just orbiting a star. It is orbiting inside a defense system. The heliosphere acts like an invisible fortress deflecting a huge fraction of the dangerous galactic cosmic rays racing through interstellar space. As long as you stay inside, you are living under the influence of the sun. But once you cross the edge, the rules change. Voyager 1 did exactly that. And what it found was not a gentle fade into emptiness. It found a hard transition into a much more hostile environment. One of the most disturbing things about Voyager 1's crossing is how sharp it appears to have been. Scientists expected a messy transition, maybe a long mixed zone where the sun's influence slowly weakened and the galaxy slowly took over. But that is not what the probe recorded. The data suggested something far more dramatic. The density of particles from the solar wind dropped off abruptly, almost disappearing, while high-energy galactic cosmic rays surged inward like a pressure front waiting on the other side of a door. That is why the heliopause feels so eerie. It is not just a theoretical edge. It behaves like a real frontier. On one side, the sun dominates. On the other, the Milky Way takes over. There is no comforting middle ground, no endless soft blur between the two. Voyager 1 crossed a line, and the universe on the other side immediately felt different. Like stepping out of a lit house into a storm you did not realize was already raging around it. The probe showed us that the space beyond our solar system is not passive. It is active, pressurized, and far more dangerous than many people ever imagined. What Voyager 1 revealed next may be even more unsettling. The heliosphere is not a perfect sphere floating undisturbed through space. It is being squeezed, pressed, distorted by the medium around it. Voyager's measurements showed that the interstellar environment beyond the heliopause was denser than expected, meaning the galaxy itself is pushing against our solar system's protective bubble with far more force than many models had assumed. The result is not a static shield, but a boundary that is compressed on one side, stretched on another, and constantly changing as the sun moves through the Milky Way. That is the part people do not usually think about. Our protection is not fixed. It breathes. It expands when solar activity is strong. It contracts when the sun weakens. It responds to what is happening both inside and outside. In other words, the wall around our cosmic home is alive. And if the surrounding galactic environment became denser or more magnetically intense, that wall could shrink enough to let far more radiation penetrate deeper into the solar system. Voyager did not just show us a boundary. It showed us that the boundary can move. And once you understand that, the idea of safety in space starts to feel much more temporary than we like to admit. Beyond the heliopause, Voyager 1 entered a region that many people once imagined as dead space. But the measurements told a completely different story. The interstellar medium was not empty. It was structured by magnetic fields, waves of plasma, high-energy particles, and pressure systems born from violent events across the galaxy, including supernova explosions. This was not a passive vacuum. It was an environment, a living one in the physical sense, organized, dynamic, and constantly interacting with the edge of our solar system. And maybe that is the deepest fear hiding inside this entire discovery. Not that there's something out there in the science fiction sense, but that the galaxy itself is far more aggressive and less hospitable than our old intuition allowed. The sun is not the absolute ruler of its surroundings. It is holding back a larger ocean of radiation and pressure with a shield that is always under stress. Voyager 1 crossed that shield and sent home the first direct proof that our home is not surrounded by harmless emptiness. It is surrounded by a hostile cosmic sea, and we have been living inside a protective bubble without fully understanding how much it has been doing for us. One of the most unsettling implications of Voyager 1's crossing is how thin this protective boundary may actually be. People tend to imagine the edge of the solar system as some enormous gradual buffer, a vast cushion of fading solar influence slowly blending into the galaxy beyond. But the data suggests something more fragile, more knife-like. The heliopause behaves less like a wide comfort zone and more like a membrane, a narrow dividing surface between two very different cosmic conditions. That matters because thin boundaries feel vulnerable. If the shield around our solar system is not a giant wall, but a compressed frontier under constant stress, then even subtle changes in solar output or interstellar pressure could matter more than we once thought. It is like discovering that the walls of a deep-sea habitat are much thinner than expected. You still feel protected, yes, but you stop assuming that protection is effortless. Voyager 1 did not just reveal where the border is. It revealed how delicate the difference may be between safety and exposure. Perhaps the darkest detail of all is what surged in the moment Voyager 1 crossed over. Galactic cosmic rays, high-energy particles accelerated by some of the most violent events in the universe. Snorts rose sharply once the probe left the sun's magnetic protection behind. These are not harmless background specks. They are fast, penetrating, biologically dangerous particles capable of passing through matter and damaging electronics, instruments, and living tissue. Voyager's instruments showed that they were not scattered gently through the dark. They were already there, pressing against the heliosphere, waiting just outside the boundary. That is what makes the whole discovery feel so primal. The sun is not merely warming the planets and lighting the sky. It is shielding life from a storm most of us never see. The moment Voyager stepped beyond that protection, the galaxy announced itself not with silence, but with radiation, like opening a bunker door and feeling the heat of a fire already raging outside. The probe showed us that the calm inside the solar system may be more artificial, more temporary, and more precious than we ever realized. Another reason this crossing matters so much is that it changed how we think about the galaxy itself. Before Voyager, many people imagined interstellar space as almost featureless emptiness, a black vacuum too thin to behave like a real environment. But the probe found the opposite. There are pressure waves out there, magnetic structures, plasma oscillations, regions, snorts of varying density. In other words, interstellar space has something like weather. Not in the way Earth has weather, but in the sense that it is active, shifting, and full of physical conditions that change over time. That idea is deeply unsettling because it means the solar system is not drifting through stillness. It is moving through a larger medium that has texture, force, and consequence. The sun is carrying us through a galactic ocean with changing currents, and the heliosphere is the hull of the ship. Sometimes the pressure is lighter. Sometimes it is stronger. Sometimes the magnetic seas around us may compress the boundary more than usual. Voyager 1 revealed that space beyond our home is not dead. It is an environment powerful enough to shape the size and strength of our protection in real time. And that may be the most important consequence of all, because Voyager 1's discovery is not just a poetic lesson about our place in the cosmos. It has direct implications for the future of human civilization. Any long-term dream of deep space travel, interstellar missions, or permanent human presence far beyond the planets now has to confront the reality Voyager exposed. Outside the sun's protection, the galaxy is not welcoming. It is radioactive, dynamic, and physically hostile in ways that cannot be romanticized away. That means the boundary Voyager crossed is not only the edge of the solar system. It is the edge of innocence. Before that crossing, we could imagine outer space as distance. After it, we have to imagine it as exposure. Any future species that hopes to live beyond this cosmic shelter will have to build its own shields, its own artificial heliospheres, its own defenses against the sea Voyager entered alone. In that sense, the probe did not just reveal what lies beyond the solar system. It revealed the price of going there. For most of human history, we looked at the solar system as if it were simply where we happen to live. A collection of planets orbiting an ordinary star surrounded by empty darkness. But Voyager 1 changed that picture forever. Because when it crossed the outer boundary of the sun's influence, it revealed something far more unsettling than a quiet transition into the void. It showed us that our solar system may be less like an open neighborhood and more like a shelter, a magnetic refuge carved out inside a much harsher and more dangerous galaxy. That is what makes this discovery feel so heavy. The darkness beyond our home is not passive. It is full of pressure, radiation, plasma, magnetic turbulence, and high-energy particles that were already waiting just outside the heliopause. The sun is not just the object at the center of our sky. It is the source of a protective bubble that has been shielding life from a hostile cosmic sea this entire time. And Voyager 1 proved that the boundary between those two realities is thinner, sharper, and more fragile than many people ever imagined. Maybe that is what we feared most all along. Not that there was some hidden monster waiting beyond the solar system, but that the truth would be colder than that. That the galaxy itself is the danger. That our home has been protected by an invisible shield we barely understood. And that outside that shield, music, the universe is not welcoming. It is survivable only with protection, only with preparation, only with an understanding of what Voyager uncovered at the edge. So now the question is no longer whether Voyager 1 crossed the boundary of the solar system. The real question is this. If our star has been protecting us from the galaxy all along, what happens the day humanity tries to live beyond that protection? If you enjoyed this video, drop your theory in the comments below. Do you think Voyager 1 revealed the true nature of interstellar space? Or are we still only beginning to understand what lies beyond the sun's final frontier? And subscribe, because if the edge of our solar system turned out to be a shield, then what comes next may completely change how we think about space, survival, and humanity's future among the stars.